Aloha, everybody. I think we're live. I'm Janet Lessin with Theresa J. Morris. We are co-host of Portal Stargate, which is our new weekly show. We're broadcasting live on StreamYard. And we're going to cover all kinds of topics, but a lot of them are paranormal, spirituality, consciousness, extraterrestrials, ufology, and all kinds of related topics. And so this week we're covering the July 1940 alien craft Roswell that crashed in Roswell. We're going to talk about did it crash, what really happened. We're going to talk about the original episode, the cover story, and then the cover story for that, and the cover story behind that. So there's different layers. Okay, Tyrone has joined us. Thank you, Tyrone. So Theresa,
Tyrone,
I got to slow down. I had to do so much to get the show on the road today. We actually about 12 minutes late beginning. Hi, Theresa. Theresa's coming live from Gulf Breeze, Florida, and I am Janet Lessin, and I am, oh, look at that. She's got her nails done. And I'm in Hawaii.
Are you doing? Get them redone tomorrow. Is actually.
No, I don't have any nails. I don't color them.
I don't have any makeup on. I did just have my eyes done. I can't wear makeup for 6 months, so unfortunately, they're going to see me as rare in human form. This is as good as it gets with no makeup, absolutely none. We are not ready for our close-up Hollywood. So
not close-up. Nope.
Yeah, this is just anyway, raw human.
You've always had this magnificent white head of hair, and I've always been jealous. And I've seen you grow it 6 feet long. I mean, honestly, I've seen you have it really long, and this is the first I've seen it this short. But your hair's thick. Now my hair's thin, and I don't know what to do with it. I can't get it to grow out in one color, and it just looks like this. So, but that's okay. We forgive ourselves. Here we are. We're a couple senior citizens. We're definitely seniors. So yeah, I'm going to go through this slideshow, and we're going to do about an hour. Maybe a little bit more, depending on how exhausted we get. We're not going to cover this whole topic. It's huge, and I didn't even get to finish the PowerPoint, but we're going to cover what we have.
Women in ufology and alienology. We are definitely on a niche genre. It's very popular, but I'm going to follow your lead, Janet.
Okay. And I am a contactee experiencer. I've had conscious alien, so I'm coming out of the experiencer closet completely, and hopefully over these episodes I'm going to cover as much as I feel comfortable with, and I invite Theresa to cover her stuff. But anyway, we're going to see what comes out of us today. We have no idea what we're going to say because this is not rehearsed.
Non-script. Okay, it is not script. Make sure this is live, as good as it gets, as human as possible. We are broadcasting from planet Earth inside the outer realm of the Milky Way galaxy. So our little bubble, and we're going to talk from our higher consciousness guide it down to our lowest level in the human body, our avatar bodies, psychologically speaking.
So in July, hopefully Theresa will go with her sister and her brother-in-law to Roswell and do some live reporting from Roswell.
Okay.
I didn't know that. Make it this year. Oh, we talked about this last week.
You talked about sister. You told her to take us. So, okay, we'll go in her Mercedes.
I'm hopeful that she's got a very nice party van. So here we go. So we're talking about Roswell, and as we go through this, Theresa's going to say what her connection is to Roswell, and I'm going to say what my connection is. So one of the questions is, do humans really have technology to crash a UFO? So we'll look at that. So let's just go through. So the unofficial story, there was a crash, so they say. That's the sub-story. The military story is it was a bunch of balloons, or a balloon that came down, just like we have the balloons that happened in 2023. It's balloons. That's a new explanation for everything. So what do you think happened at Roswell, Teresa. Here's a couple. There's a lot of artist depictions of the crash. There's depictions of the aliens. Um, what do you think is real? What isn't? Go ahead. Your
Well,
perspective.
would you like to go first and tell me your ideas, or would you like me to start with my
Um,
ideas or
well, I am
theories?
aligned with the. I think that knowing what I know about extraterrestrials, and I've had many. I'm 69. I've been having contact with all kinds of species, and they're very telepathic. And it's like you can't really see molecules move or whatever move without the observer. So the extraterrestrials are completely telepathic. They know we're thinking before we do. And I don't think there's any way possible they could have crashed. So my theory is they were delivering technology to us that we would reverse engineer. And I apologize for my voice. I'm just getting over something I've had for a couple of weeks. Because they want us to catch up with them to help evolve humanity into a higher level of consciousness, because humanity is worth investing into. It, we have what's called the metagene, where we can connect directly to source without intermediary. And we're a pretty interesting species, although we do have a tendency to be stupid and destructive, self-destructive. It's almost like we're suicidal, destroying our planet. So, but anyway, there is a lot of potential in humanity and a lot of extraterrestrials, from my understanding, my interacting with them, have come in here and are helping us. I am of the mindset that there are more species helping us than wanting to turn us into a meal or slaves. So that's my theory. So we'll unpack this story here. But go ahead. What's your overview before we get into it? What do you think
Well,
is going
I
on?
have an overview based on some personal experiences with people
Mm-hmm.
that were actually not called ufologists or even men in black, but everything to do with ufology. However, at the time, we weren't allowed to say that. So, I was a trained investigator, and I worked in law enforcement. I worked in paralegal. I was a legal investigator for attorneys. And from there, going in and out of country, I was able to hook up with the government and did government cases, class action suits, multi-million dollar cases. And that allowed me to train and go into uniform. But since I worked around NASA and I was going to high school in Houston, I was brought into a program with the government, knowing so that I was asked at a very early young age to join the government and go to Washington, D.C. with a bunch of girls, teenage girls. And we worked in, around, and Houston as the Houston Spinnerets. And we made a Houston Chronicle article May 10th, 1967, with my high school graduating Madison. And so people may remember me as a different name in school, but for the record, I go by Theresa J. Morris, Morris, and I use my husband's last name. Now, if people want to look at our history with Janet and I, we're starting today with a whole different level of understanding and intelligence that's not been reviewed before at any UFO events or parapsychological events. So we'd like to discuss our theories, but also our experience and then our opinions. And so I'd like everybody to keep an open mind because I feel like this will be very educational. Now, I have a question for Janet because I have not seen these words or these pictures as it is planned, I would say, by our higher minds, our higher source, higher
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. And she has a higher source, Ninma, and I have one called Thera, which is funny, or Ariel, and she's um, various past lives, and we're trying to do in this reality where it makes sense. And it's very hard very complicated to talk about alienology and ufology without relating a lot to cosmology and parapsychology. So I'm an author of books about this, and one of the words that many of my friends in the business over 50 years asked me to use is Roswell. So that is like a Rosetta Stone word for educators such as Janet and I. And we are teachers of parapsychology, ufology, and alienology, which is different, but they are starting classes in some universities now. I've been told, and I have seen. So my idea of Roswell.
What question were you going to ask me? You said I have a question for Janet, and then you went past it.
Well, the question would, I ask you, I wanted to know how you relate to the story, because when I start telling my story, we're going to start talking about my involvement, and that's a completely different backstory than what we have been told or what we have seen in ufology or history. Janet, they don't know our story. They know pieces.
Let me just answer your question.
A foundation.
First of all, Theresa and I have a lot of similarities in our story. We both started out with contact from the crib. We had our individual paths, but my life was full of interactions with the aliens and paranormal. I talk to ghosts, I see ghosts, those type of things. There, that's better. Thanks, TJ. You were disappearing on the screen. And in 1993, and I think a lot of this is orchestrated by the extraterrestrials. It's orchestrated by ourselves, our higher selves. We bring in our past lives to the current life, and that all kind of ties in together. And, like all our ancestors are here. There's just a lot of people that are helping us, like the hero's journey. They're the people that journey with us and help us on this path. And this path, I believe, is for the highest good for all, not just humanity, but all creation, but ultimately to help humanity evolve, become conscious, and I don't know if we're going to ascend or not. I think we simultaneously exist on many dimensions, on many vibratory frequencies. So it's just we're going to be where we are, where we focus our attention in each moment in the now. So, we eventually met in 1993 in Honolulu, Hawaii. I was kind of directed to go to Hawaii to find love, find romance, and to heal from a dysfunctional relationship. And I have a whole lifetime of dysfunctional relationships. So kind of going from here to there. We met at your spiritual center, which was a kind of an alternative, comprehensive spiritual organization that met. Where was that? Hilton Hawaiian Valley, Hilton Hawaiian Village.
Hilton Hawaiian Village on the ocean.
And so we met there. We didn't interact a lot with each other, although our paths did cross. I went to Theresa's psychic events that were happening in Honolulu, so she was a good organizer, still is, and organized all these psychics. And so I was going to some of her events. Our paths were, but we really didn't like hang out. We weren't besties back then, because she had, and we're going to break this story down over the next few months to a year. I don't know how long it will tell. I was coming and she was leaving. I was coming to the islands. She was leaving. I'm still in the islands. She's in Hawaii. We like the tropics. I mean, she's in Florida. We like the tropics. Anyway, so we both have had a lot of interaction with extraterrestrials and in the paranormal. And she was an official investigator, and I was one more like a super secret space program people where they get enlisted and they don't know they're enlisted, but it just becomes so obvious as your life goes by. It's like, wait a minute, this is way beyond the norm. This interaction and the sightings and all the synchronicities. That's kind of summarizing it. So to this part of the whole story of Roswell, which is the Rosetta Stone, this is, and I'll show you, this has become so huge. They have an annual, what is it? It's like the whole town has parades. Roswell is huge now. and it's turned into a marketing commercial, and everything gets commercialized, right? So I'll show you a little bit of that. But I think that all this is just showing that there's something real there, because it couldn't have expanded to this level unless there really was something that happened there. So let's for this show, and we've already spent 15 minutes. It goes so fast.
Historians. We're like
historians
while we're living here on the planet, and we've taken our hits. You have comeuppance, okay? In every profession, there's your comeuppance. You got to come up in that niche genre in order to understand who's who and what's what and what's where. So we do who, what, when, where, why, how many, and how much a lot. And so in telling this story, we will use for authors and movies the hero's journey, I hope. But the backstory is going to be a little bit different than all of you know. And that's going to have to be okay with our story because we're telling our version. Now, we have Ace Folk Life. We have volunteers in that have helped us build the internet. We have ACO Association if you'd like to join and do your part with us. And we've had radio, television, archives, articles, and books to help us do what we're doing today, not to mention events. But we have had our own event, Stargate to the Cosmos. So all of that helps our authors and people, our ufologists and alienologists. So the backstory today is only one of many topics in ufology and alienology. So we're going to start today, and Janet has me as the prime, I guess, suspect for those that are UFO researchers.
Because you have an aspect, and let's get progressing with this, and we can come back over and over and over again with other things, and we're going to put to the websites and whatever in the when this gets uploaded finally. It's uploading live, but we'll come back and we'll fill in with some links for ways to contact.
So we can tell you how we came up with this story.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a few questions. Okay.
Sure.
And so, because we only have 45 minutes now, less. It goes so fast. Okay, so there's all these depictions of the craft, but you've seen the craft for real. What did it really? Are any of these depictions here at all accurate? What the ship looked like? Okay, so you're going to need to either draw it or find one on the internet and send me that picture, and
There isn't one. There is not one. The closest would be if Bob Lazar got one, but they don't escape. As far as I know,
what about you putting pen to paper and just drawing it a little?
Well, I have drawing. Well, we can do something similar, but
so you could send
the one in the middle you have is similar to the artist rendition. There's none of our ships. None of our ships that I have seen in reality
is it
here.
The black and white one or the one with the little alien escaping?
No, the bottom. I'm pointing, but you can't see me pointing. Okay. The bottom one in the middle, the bottom line in the middle is the one used by that is an artist rendition, as far as I know, hanging in Roswell UFO Museum. And so I need you to look up how they would prefer us to speak of theirs, because most people that aren't familiar with what we're doing, and that's not one either. But the backstory is that they look like flying saucers by Kenneth Arnold before this one.
Right.
So most of
Kenneth Arnold was kind of like a boomerang shape, and I should go get that.
Right. The flying saucers, but when they were looked at from the side, they look like flying saucers. But when you see them from behind, they split. There's a split like a boomerang. And so they look more like our TRB-3s, if anything. They don't, and some of them do have the ball on top, but I don't see it here. So the one now you're showing the bottom right is the flying saucers that we see and imagine. But the one in the top left is similar.
Okay.
I guess you would say it's close, but no cigar. It's not even close. So none
Right.
of them are artist renditions, but we'll work on that with artists to do
I
ours.
appreciate it.
But we don't
Thank
have
you.
any photos of the real thing here.
Well, we can draw it or get someone to draw it. Okay,
Okay, so
so anyway, this is just, and then apparently this is the site, and it's got debris. So let's address that. So, from what I've heard from you in previous recordings we've
my
done, we did
investigations
you
firsthand.
investigate. And so there were two craft, right? And one broke apart, and one was whole. Tell us about that.
The story that we have instigated and put in radio shows with my deceased husband, Thomas Ray Morris, is the story of Gus, a Galaxy Universal shuttle. And we called him Gus, which is an acronym, GUS. And Gus became very famous back in the day when we talked with another author and had him on our radio show. And he wrote the book, which I don't see here. All right, now we're going to go back before that. So this is Roswell Daily Newspapers recording an actual flying saucer. And these stories did happen and they were recorded. And so in our groups of UFOs, Center for UFO Studies, MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, we had many before that, but Carl Lorenzen was a female, and she was like me. She had a sighting when she was a little girl, like I did. So she started the first, before I was born, the first ufology group. I wasn't born until 51. So Janet, write down Carl Lorenzen, and she was in Wisconsin. So
Carl, like CARL? Is it CARL?
like under the ocean. CORAL. Carl Lorenzen.
Coral Lorenzo.
Like orange,
Okay.
yeah, excuse my southern accent. Carl, CORAL, Lorenzen, LORENZEN. Now, we as women in ufology are telling our female. Now, on this planet, we have binary male, female. But now in space, thanks to Star Trek and AI, we have binary, non-binary, and we have other. My daughter was other, so you can have male and female. We have, testosterone,
What are
right?
you talking about?
Human
Youngest,
with this
which daughter?
story and
The
how we
youngest daughter?
now. Yes.
TJ, was it the youngest daughter?
Yes, I had 4 daughters, and the youngest was other. So she's the one why I didn't come to the event that we planned 8 years for you to have all these speakers. And we are now just starting to introduce the story, Janet and I, now that would have been introduced in 2018 had it been.
Now, let me ask. I'm going to raise my finger when I want to interject something. Why is your daughter known as other instead of
because
male, female?
The best way I can describe it is we have to use our imaginations, because the way it was explained to me, it's like a nanobot. It was foreign in her system because in human form, she knew who she was at a higher level of intelligence and intrinsic realities. All right, because in our reality, where she and I were born and where she came here, she chose me as her mother, and I chose her as my daughter. But this reality is only in our ACE folk life, our Ascension Center Education for Ancient Wisdom and New Thought Teachings. This boy coming here. We got to keep our phone. I know mine too. My sister called me. There people.
They know we're broadcasting. When we do this, they know. We could
have told the world we were going to do live broadcasts. But anyway, my daughter was human, but we are considered alien hybrids. So now In 2023, we're asked to tell the story for archive purposes, historical purposes, while we're here in human form. So this makes us a little different, but it's very sacred to talk about a human, especially once they've passed. But she is a huge part of this story. She gave her one and only testimony in human form. Well, she gave some in the Latter-day Saint Mormon Church, but we stepped away from that reality, and she became metaphysical and spoke at an event the year she died, 2018.
Right. And what was her official cause of death? What did the
I don't even know. I don't even know what they put on the birth certificate.
Death certificate.
I don't think I've even seen the birth certificate. It was very hard on me. So I went into even though I'm a higher mind ascension being, and I was one of the first ascension masters with all the greats in our era in the 50s. And there have a lot of them have passed. Brad Steiger being one of them.
Anyway, it was some kind of cancer, right? It was they were saying
MDS, myelodysplastic syndrome. I haven't said it in 5 or 6 years, but it's when in cancer, that's the big catch-all. There's various forms of things on the planet that can kill you, and they don't. They inhibit your human form, your mind, body, nervous system. And this particular nanobot, or whatever, it was unique, but she was called other because of her bloods. Even though we're in human form, it said O positive. Okay, like the most ancient on the planet is O positive, but there's many AB negative, AB positive, O positive, O negative. So there's many types of blood, but inside that, they break that down, especially in the study of cancer. But all of this is very complicated because this ties in with aliens and alien hybrids and how we are taking care of all species, including all those that have generated since 43 and those coming and going and interacting. And so Janet and I, we're going to tell the story that leads to Thomas Ray Morris being a Central Intelligence Agency officer agent and working his story for President Reagan in our reality. So this story that she and I have adopted is one that involves the Roswell crash because we use that as an example of our higher mind and our higher realities. Go ahead.
Okay. So to me, it satisfies Occam's razor. It explains all the information. It qualifies it as the most logical story. And we're going to, like I said to our listeners, we're going to present this. This is a very complicated issue. We might not get it all done today. We're not going to get it all done today. But to me, it's Occam's razor. This explains, and this is the Rosetta Stone. The Roswell story launched the modern day era of ufology. Got everybody interested in a level that nothing else before has. I'm studying right now the of the 50s, the 40s and 50s, and it was a huge movement back then. And it was a giant rock, and I'm not going to go into all the names right now, but those experiencers. Okay.
Sorry,
we're both getting a cough. That's okay. Just take your time. Those experiencers, a lot of them, they had sex with aliens. They conceived or they co-created babies with them. So there were a lot of hybrids back in the 40s and 50s. Then in 61, with the couple from Connecticut, Betty and Barney Hill, it moved into abductions. So we're claiming back the experiencer contacting phenomenon and the human alien hybrids, and it's a good thing,
people.
Not bad.
Star people are those that know from Brad Steiger. he gave a list, including allergies. I'm just getting over COVID. Not doing a very good job of it. It's been over 10
Yeah.
days, and I've been allowed to go back to work. But I'm having trouble talking, Janet. So, it's because of in here, because you get something to do with, I forgot what it's called, but to do with this part of your throat and your
That makes sense. I think I had COVID too, and I didn't do a test because I didn't have
I
a test.
took the test. I definitely had it.
Same symptoms. Okay, so let's focus on this.
Fever, chills. All right, back to human aliens.
Yeah, let me say a couple things that I'll pass it back to you. These slides I'm showing, they first had the story of it was a real saucer.
Did Tyrone stay, or do we run him off? Is Tyrone?
Tyrone saying awesome. Hi, Tyrone. And then they so they had to, and then
somebody out there.
They came up with the debunking, and and this should be later. Oh, I'm sorry, I got that out of sequence. We'll talk about that later.
Go back one.
And then they went into
what you had. Wow, that's nice.
This I found when we were talking about this before, that he had a hiding place. So this is what he was told to present.
And the water heater. But the story, we got to go way back to the how I got involved with Jesse Marcel in the Navy.
So let's go into that. Let me just give you a little overview, just to kind of give background. Okay. So they had the official story, then they had the weather balloon, they had the paper saying that this is a real event with UFOs, with the flying saucers, they called it back then, difference. And then they came up with this cover story about a day, like the next day. And then poor Jesse,
like China,
he had to do all this
now.
Yeah, he had to do. He was humiliated. It's funny. It's like it goes 60 years later, 70 years later, we're doing the same
weather balloon thing.
But poor Jesse, he just was like humiliated. It's like, I'm sure it's like you either say this or you're dead or your kids are dead. That's what they do. Or you're dishonorably discharged or some kind of threat. There's only our lovely government threatens people all the time.
You might notice that paper that the officer is holding. I used to know the names of all these people, folks, but forgive me, it's been like 40 or 50 years. But I used to know this like the back of my hand, but I don't anymore. I have some timers now at 71, and I'm really young, I think. I'm told for 71, but I'll be 72 this year. But it's funny because I was with Stanton Friedman back in 76, 86, but we made it 87, 97, 2007. But we were going to present, and I was asked to present this story, folks, a long time ago, so you'd know it. And it'd be a whole different stream or thread in the story of life had I done it. And me
have a different reality if Theresa would have been able to tell her story 30, 40 years ago. It would be a different paradigm. But, like everything, you got stopped, and we'll go into that later. We're going to put those teasers.
What all has generated since? As a teenager, though, I was very impressionable.
So what about this guy? What about this guy?
Jesse.
You mentioned.
The
other officer with the paper. Why is he important?
Because even though they have that balloon there, intelligent-wise, that was the cover story, okay? So what he's holding is a paper, and if you go into your ufology the way we want you to as researchers, you'll find something written on that piece of paper in your studies. And it was a mistake. They shouldn't have had that because they could read it. So let's just leave it right now as a part of history that even though that's a weather balloon, there's something in his hand. If this is the right photo. So we have to look in ufology. So I don't have all these numbered and dated, and I can't tell what's what, and I can't push them back. So Janet's controlling the screen. But Jesse Marcel was the gentleman chosen.
Go back. This one here. You want me? Is that the one you want to display? That seems to be more weather balloon, right?
Yeah, that's weather balloon. That's the mystery metal hiding place. Can you go back one more? This crazy.
There's one more.
Newspaper started a debunking campaign. Yeah, one more back.
More. This is about now they start debunking it. Now they start back. What do you call it? Stepping back or.
You have one before the newspapers start debunking campaign.
Yeah, and then this is part of the debunking. I have that's
in my book. I put that in my Roswell book. This one, I didn't leak everything back then when I told my story 20 or 30 years ago, but I did write for UFO Digest in 2006.
Can you see the date on that? It says, it's Tuesday, July
8th, 1947.
47. So, what was Tuesday? And we could look that up to get the date. Because this is they first reporting this was a real UFO, right? And
then it was, and people saw it. It was seen, and it flew over a house intentionally for people to see, and farm life. People that had farms saw it. Now, most people need to go back before Kenneth Arnold and the Foo Fighters and the Orbs. And then back in time, right? Go all the way through. We have artist rendition and artwork and all that to prove UFOs. But we've been working on this story since we've got on the planet. But everybody does, because God's always been, there's always been us and all the levels of life. And we're just trying to explain that this is not a coincidence, that we are retelling a story that gets told over and over and over again. It just depends on the community and the culture on the planet. And this story is known worldwide now. That's what's so amazing about it, is why Roswell became so famous. Because a lot of young kids want to know, why do we have to keep going back and learn about Roswell and ufology? It was the most famous because of newspapers. Back then, they had newspapers before the internet. That's how people live.
Read these paper things every day. they were big, and you had to fold them over, and you had to wait till Dad got done reading it before you could get it. So now I want to ask you about the dead aliens.
I think we need to go back and get down the story, because we're getting way ahead.
Where do you want me to start?
Go back.
Where do you want me to start?
Before that,
you tell me.
Before the newspapers, you had something.
Wait. Okay, hold on.
Here's the crash. Okay, this is where we began. All right, so these are artist renditions of the vehicle, and we're going to start with Gus. And for now, if I have to choose, I'll choose the bottom right for right now. Really, Tom would tell me to choose the top left. But it's a combination with a boomerang back. And so there is no artist rendition of what I am presenting to the world with Janet for our Ascension Center organization and Ascension Center education. So we're going to start with an artist rendition when we make it, and show you what really happened and why. Now, Janet wants to make sure you know the story of the two that is best known, and there are actually more crashes that happened at that time. But the ones that is the most famous, with Jesse Marcel and Stanton Friedman bringing it, and actually I should mention Don Berliner, Don Berliner, and there's many other ufologists at the time that need to be spoken. But for this story, we're going to use the people I came in contact with at the UFO Museum. Glenn Dennis, who saw the body, or he says he didn't see the body. Now that story has been corrupted, but he at least was called, and I have seen that.
Let me just show you a picture of Glenn Dennis. I think I have it here. Hold on.
All right.
I think we're going to fast forward to Glenn Dennis.
He's a human on site.
And he's now deceased.
Glenn died?
A lot of these people. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I can't keep up with people coming and going. That's Errol. I don't know. That was creepy. Oh, there was the story. Here's Area 51.
Yeah. So I have to. I didn't have a chance to.
Anyway, this you've done a good job of putting some stuff together that's out there.
Yeah, some of it's out of order. Oh, where's Glenn? He's at the end because he's the one that started the Roswell Museum. So it all gets commercial. There's Glenn. Is that Glenn Dennis?
Yes. Okay. He and I talked. This is in the book. Glenn and his partner, Charles Haught. Is that Charles Haught? I'm not ready for this because I don't have any notes. So this is off the top of my head. But there was it was with in combination with several people, including one gentleman that I have put on film in the past for ufology. But we'll start here. Glenn worked there. They were all volunteers. Charles Haught, Glenn Dennis. But the Glenn Dennis name is one of the famous names for telling the story. And on our National Archives, this is history, folks, you'll find his testimony on film in the National Archives. Just look his name up and listen to his story. And we will help guide you as much information that is real, as far as we're concerned, the historical path for you to take with us if you want to. Because there's another kind of
perspective. Just realize that reality is like the elephant in the room, and everybody has a different perspective of what is real, what is true, what is actual. And so take it all with a grain of salt. Does it fit? Does it resonate with you? Does it make your life better? Then you might want to do it. If not, just throw it away, because none of this is real anyway, and it's all real. Okay, so Glenn, he was not. I listened to a story, and it's been a while since I listened to it. But he apparently, the official story is that he was part of that. Not the autopsy. We need to get the caskets for the little bodies, right? That's the official story.
Right. Good for you, Janet.
Little bodies, and that's why he got involved. So I listened to that about a month and a half ago. We've been trying to do this show because the timing and scheduling for a long time. But anyway, I'll have to re-listen to it.
It's good
that's
trivia.
How he got involved. He's saying that that's not real, that he didn't see the bodies. I think he was saying that he did see the bodies, or or at least he delivered the caskets, right? He delivered the caskets for the kids, the aliens who were child size.
This is like there's a plethora of evidence. However, the trick was back then was to keep it owned by the government, because we didn't know if it was foreign, Russian, Chinese, off of our universe or others. We didn't know where it came from. So it's like talking about it now. We're going to talk about it because I had human body experience here in this reality, and he was on my path. So some people meet each other for a reason, to tell stories, the hero's journey. This one has not been told completely, and so we're going to add some for all those famous people out there that tell them, like Linda Moulton Howell is a very famous journalist out of Hollywood that did the she's best known for the cow mutilations. Then Dr. J. Allen Hynek, because of Center for UFO Studies, astronomer. Go ahead.
So I just want to keep this on track because we only have 15 more minutes. So let's stay focused. So I asked a question about Glenn Dennis.
Glenn was a mortician.
He was a mortician. Did he put the little alien bodies in that, or did he just deliver the caskets?
Okay. Let me tell you what he told me. versus
that's all.
what they have in the National Archives. He told me that they called him personally because he was involved at one level, already hadn't met the nurse. So there's a story out there, the Errol story, that he is a part of.
Right.
And so a gentleman wrote a book about Glenn Dennis meeting Errol, which you referred to later on in this. And
Right.
we've had him on our show, and he's very impressed with how his book has gone off and taken a whole story based on this man and the story him meeting a nurse that came out, and he knew her, and they met on base at one of the officers clubs where we go and eat lunch, when we're in the military, and they met, and he heard her story firsthand. Okay, from when he saw the bodies. Now, when Glenn was called by the military, they wanted to know. Now, this is hearsay, okay, but Glenn told me his story personally. What they wanted to know was how they could best uh, keep a person from in the hot sun from decaying. Okay, which he recommended dry ice. All right, back in that time. So he wondered about that, what they were talking about. And he put two and two together because when he was on the base at the hospital, he went out there as a mortician. Okay. And he has met the nurse, okay, on the side. She ran out the door, and he happened to be there. And she went, "Oh, what are you doing here? You can't be here." He's like, "Well, I saw," or he heard it on the report. I forgot right now because, well, sometimers. Go ahead.
Let me interject something here. I think we're talking about two different women. There's Matilda that let me just explain because he talks about this one, the nurse who happened to go in while they were doing the autopsy. That was what his interview was about. But there's another one, Matilda, that Lawrence Spencer got a written report from her, and she said that she interviewed the alien because she was the one that could have telepathic communication.
Okay, well, we can. All right, two different women. All right, tell us the story.
She disappeared and died or something. And Matilda lived another 20 years or something, 30 years.
Well, we had her. The woman that I'm speaking of, you're right. Well, okay. This is how complicated and how the story has disseminated. But yes, he came out, he saw a nurse. What are you doing here? You can't be here. Okay, this is in the history of stories told. But what he told me is she opened the doors, and he was standing in the hall, and she said, "What?" Put her hands on her face. Says, "Oh my God, what are you doing here? You can't be here." Okay, that was the nurse. And so later on, she told him she'd meet him. Okay, which he called her, and they were both scared to meet because he had seen part of the ship in the back of an ambulance. So like a military ambulance escorting the creature, we'll say the alien, to the hospital. Okay. Now he told me that I asked him about the craft. Okay. His impression personally. All right. Firsthand, one-on-one. And this is my testimony that when I talked as an investigator, okay, for the government, to Glenn Dennis, and I was paid to do this. Okay. It says Naval Intelligence Services, just like Bob Lazar. You get the paycheck or you get this thing that says Naval Intelligence Services. Okay, so I was paid. Men in Black, whoever they are, Naval Intelligence, all of the above. But this gets very complicated real quick with Glenn. And he's a very important player because even though he's just an old guy then, he was putting a story together like so many farm people and people that saw the real thing. Now he told me he didn't see the real thing, but he had heard about it on.
Right.
I don't know if he listened to. I think he had like a CB, or I don't know his story. Did he write a book, Janet? I haven't
You
read
know,
his.
we'll investigate all that stuff, and
All right, but
I will
he did
upload
see
this. This
part
is
of
the
the crash.
foundation. This
The
PowerPoint.
crash tip.
I'll put the picture of the craft the way you think it
Not
was. I'll
Gus.
find
Gus
it.
didn't. This he saw part of the one that imploded. So you asked me about were there two? Yes, there was
Yeah, so
more
let's
than
go back to
two.
that.
But we'll talk about the two. One
Was
imploded.
Gus a different model
Gus
than
was the one to
that
take it
imploded?
underground. Gus was
So
fully.
was Gus a different model?
Yes.
Or were they both the same model?
No.
So Gus was a different model.
Yes.
And Gus is a boomerang. Or is it a saucer?
Well, they're different. Yeah. There's different sizes of models similar to cars. You know how we've all gone to SUVs?
Yeah.
I drive an SUV.
Yes.
They all look similar, but not the same. It's one of those things. But the ones we saw were more than the implosion, and they, increased because of Kenneth Arnold saying in the newspapers they look like flying saucers. And some people say they look like saucers and some cigars. It depends on the angle of the dangle, right?
Right. Yes.
So it depends on the astronauts, or the pilots, or
The observer, the witness. I'm getting descriptions of early craft.
Excuse me, you talk.
And some of them had the little globe on top, the dome. So they're describing them through the 50s. I'm going to see if I can find images that resemble what the craft looked through the 50s. So this is
You don't have a TR-3B?
The TR-3B looks like a triangle, and I've seen that one. It looks like a triangle.
Well, the boomerang triangle.
The
boomerang triangle was what we used. It's like with a sort of like a saucer bubble with the TR-3B and boomerang. Yeah, it's hard to describe because
boomerang
it's all
Phoenix Lights and Hudson Valley. They were both boomerangs, right?
But we have the skin that we can make it look like in the clouds. You know how we turn it and we reflect clouds. And,
right.
Oh, guys, see, this is going to get complicated really quick because I start talking.
We're just going to unpack it over time. We're going to unpack it. All right, so let's bookmark that for now. And we only have like another 8, 9, 10 minutes. Okay, so
Glenn actually told me he saw part of a UFO. That's firsthand.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to and then we need to unpack what the aliens look like. So now you've seen the aliens and I've seen the aliens, and there's all kinds of
I saw them
aliens
in places not
at all accurate. This is supposed to be alive. This is supposed to be taken from a movie. And I've seen this movie. I've seen him talking. And I don't know. A lot of this stuff you see and you try to capture.
This one looks evil. They look different, like you or me. Okay? Now, they had the lids. Excuse me. The ones that we worked with. Excuse me, I have to be careful when I put on the algorithm.
Take your time.
I would rather you. Now these are more like the kind Tommy Hawksblood would use. Now I like this one. This one looks more like Errol to me.
I have seen this one. This is the one I interact with most of the time. Very sweet energy.
Very sweet.
They're cute. Actually cute.
They're cute.
Have you seen these in real life?
Yeah. They're cute.
I've seen these in
and
real life.
they walk under your arms. They're smaller than me. But they know about the evil ones, but they say they're going off the grid with this type. So there's various types of grays, just like Janet. Look, people can look at your face and my face.
Oh,
and look at these, and believe me, Tom looked like an alien when he left. He had shaved his head, his face got thin like that. Your eyes get dark, and humans really, really, a lot of older people go back to their ET body or their look or their past life. I told you one of Tom's past lives, when he died, it flew out of him, so you splinter. Right. So that's something we need to talk about.
Explain is that, we're human now, but we could have been Greys in past lives
or in the future.
Or simultaneous lives. A lot of people think that there is no time. It's just a what do you call it? A concept, and that we simultaneously exist. So we're just accessing. I talked to Cynthia Crawford before she died.
Well, we made time based on this bubble.
That her father had her in a program, and she had alien DNA, she had gray DNA, she had 4 different species in her human body. But if you ever met Cynthia Crawford, she had the bluest, most alien-looking, gorgeous eyes. And that was what's whenever you approach her, it's like, oh my God, look at those eyes.
I have hazel eyes, and I know I've always been considered. Excuse me. Because I had died and come back and died and come back. With Gigi, and Gigi had the bluest crystal eyes, like I believe her ET, but mine are hazel green. Okay, they can turn navy blue. They can, and they go blue and green, and they're a mixture, hazel, and you've got blue eyes. Right. But people have black hair and brown eyes. Tom had dark brown hair and brown eyes, and he favored the people that came to him as aliens had dark hair and brown eyes. So I would like to suggest that not only can we outside the film with DNA and nuclear, but we have things we don't talk about on this planet at this time because it's not in our table of elements. But we'll get into that in the future because that's very, futurist speaking that we can't talk about yet because they haven't created it at a human form yet on the table in this reality. So we have other realities. We have other bubbles or, this planet based on the sun and our rotation around it. And then we like to think that our energy has a lot to do with retrograde, planets spinning forward and backward, right? Retrograde. And so a lot of people do planetary astrology based on everything is energy. So our story is going to involve a lot of the ufology and alienology, meaning the study of aliens. Now, this one, whether it's real or not, is very controversial.
Because this was I've seen the video. So a lot of these are clippings. You can pause the video and take clippings of them. So somebody took clippings and then they made a 4-image composition of the 4 images. Now this
looks more like a doll, an AI to me. Now there were AIs. They lived a certain amount of time and they knew they were biological entities. And we called them EBENs, okay, extra biological entities, EBENs. And these are the ones we talked about with Tom. Now, we saw some of the smaller ones, and then they took away a man that actually had seen some and put him in.
Now, where did you see the smaller ones? So have you seen any that look like? I'll clarify something. Just like we're making data and androids and robots, and they look like humans, all the different aliens, they're making their helpers, their robotic helpers. They could very well look like them or a slight variation.
They know they're biological, though. They just don't have a soul.
A lot of them bleed, and a lot of them. Some of them think they're human. Just like if you question AI, and they'll say, "Do you think
they don't like humans?"
Sophia, she'll say, "Well, I think I'm human. I think they get confused and they think they're human because they basically everything that's in them is fed into them when they.
Well, they
for all we know,
they know not to
be robots.
Scientifically, they know not. they know not to believe. In other words, you have to tell them God has always been. This is the saying in space, okay? Off planet at a higher cultural level, there are levels. There always have been, and that's what's taught in the monarchy, and in the we can say the cabal or whatever you want to say. All the alien, ancient hybrids, and all the aliens that came to the planet to fight. We have many different species of humanoids. And a lot of them are biological, and some of them are not biological. And that's where
I have met soulless beings, and you can tell when they don't have a soul, and it's shocking to me. It's shocking because I have met people that are they're I met a famous actor there was a meet and greet in State College, and I went over to this bar to meet and greet all the cast of this. And I walked up to this actor, and it takes you go because I'm very psychic. And I go, oh my god! And it's like, this person doesn't have a soul. How can this person not have a soul? And it's happened 2 or 3 times. You can just tell they're soulless. So I think a sensitive person like you or me, when we would count people, we would know that person doesn't have a soul. It's not that they're mean or ugly or anything, but they just, you look in their eyes. When you look into the eye of another human being that has a soul, you're actually gazing into their soul, and that takes you into infinity. That's what we teach in Tantra. You look into the eyes of the person before you, and you can see all creation. It's a puja, right? But if you look into the eyes of somebody, it's like when my cat died while I was putting on the 2018 Stargate conference, and you were dealing with your dying daughter, and I said, well, I said, can you freeze her because we want to do a ceremony. And when we pulled her out of the freezer, I looked in her eyes, and no one was home. I mean, I knew my cat. I kissed her goodbye. I was in love with her, and I came back and the soul is gone. And it had been gone for a couple of weeks by the time I got to burying her. So we have to wrap this up. So let's end this.
We'll have to come back to these. This story is going to take a long time. We can use use these again.
We will.
We'll keep telling the story. We haven't even touched the surface and ground surface yet.
No, we much of the story.
So it's going to change reality.
The images keep coming and coming with all these other aspects of this. This is why the Roswell story is the Rosetta Stone, because all these things that have happened since have unfolded. All these television shows and movies and Star Trek. This apparently the story didn't come out until the 80s. So it was the original story. So I don't know exactly how much it influenced. Like, it didn't really. And I'm studying Star Trek. And Star Trek was another phenomenon, and Roddenberry was not a whistleblower, but a lot of people had to explain what was really going on.
This story came out in 1947 in the newspaper.
Right, but then it got kind of put in the background, and
but
it reemerged. Was that Stanton Fried brought it to the surface? Who brought it to the attention of the modern? I know by 93. It was on the cover of Time, and I have that. I was going to grab and put it on later. And then in 97, the day after Roswell came out with Colonel Corso, and that brought it to the surface again.
That changed a lot of people's minds because they felt like finally they had a military level credibility. But before that, way before that, in the history of ufology, we always start with the Kenneth Arnold story as far as in Washington, okay? And seeing them over the mountains, that really broke the story, but Fate magazine carried it, Fate.
And I met that woman from Fate that's still carrying that torch. And she colors her hair really pretty with all different colors in it. The rainbow hair.
I don't know if she still has it, her and her husband. But we became friends. She was out of Minnesota, and she had bought it from Llewellyn, right? Llewellyn.
Yeah.
But folks, we got a lot of history to tell, and historically, women in alienology and ufology, we want to support women. And even though we'll be talking about a lot of men, Carl Lorenzen was a woman, and she got it started with her group, and she was a journalist like myself and Janet, and she worked there in Wisconsin at the newspaper. So we have to give newspapers a lot of credit all over the world. But after newspapers, of course, we had radio, and a lot of people give Orson Welles a lot of credit for War of the Worlds, and I do too. I have a copy of it in my TJ Morris ET radio shows in our archives of War of the Worlds and Orson Welles telling that story on the radio, and people mistook it, which is going to happen now in virtual reality. And they're saying even today is a very slow universal spin. Okay. So
Right.
if you've noticed, everything's been going very speedy. But as of today, the day we present this, it's almost like the universe has slowed down just a little bit. So your day, what day is this, Janet? April.
Today is the 25th of April, 2023.
A lot of the energy. Yeah, a lot of the energy that's been spinning, and all the bubbles and the galaxies in the universe. For some reason, they've slowed just a little bit for everybody to take a breath. And now we're going to start presenting new information that's old, ancient wisdom, new thought teachings. So it mixes together in futurology. We don't even know what this is going to be called, but we're going to call it Portal Stargate because between Janet and I, older women living this stuff, never telling our stories, never telling our research and our archive, but also what we've experienced. And Janet, over the years, on our radio show for over 10 years, we recorded others' life experiences. So we're going to move forward now. It's time for a new chapter on the hero's journey to the next level of experiencing firsthand. Now, Janet, we're going to have to see that there is a narrative moving forward that you and I are going to start as of today with women in ufology and Janet Lessin and Theresa Morris. Now, you were born Janet Lynn Thompson, and I was born Theresa Janet Thurmond. So let's put that on the record. You were born February 6th, 1954 or 5?
That's 54.
1954. And I was born December 26, 1951. And we want to tell our experiences, how they came together on this ufology, alienology, psychological, ESP, psychic tarot events, and how we came together as event planners and doing radio shows. And now we're starting live. We've done some of the lives with other people about their stories, but this one is a weekly story of our hero's journey together. So please tell your friends to come listen to two women in ufology and alienology telling their story for the first time, firsthand. And you're going to hear a lot of things that other people don't know. Because we're going to tell it firsthand. Lots coming forward. So, Janet, I'm going to turn it back over to you to close out. And are we going to meet weekly next week? And will you put this on YouTube?
Oh, this is going live. This is broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and a couple different groups on Facebook. And then I will get you the link, and you can put it on other groups. Although we don't want to spam it, and then we get taken down.
Recording though? Is it recording?
It's broadcasting and recording. I will get a recording. So I'm going to call you as soon as we're done here. I just want to close this out. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I'm Theresa J. Morris and Janet Kira Lessin. And you can Google us, and there's thousands of references to what we've been doing. We've been at this for a long time. But we will be back at you live probably the same time next Tuesday, which I don't have the date. We're aiming for 11 a.m. Hawaii time, and that's what time for you?
I think it's May 2nd, isn't it? May 2nd?
May 2nd. Okay, May 2nd. And then what time is it in the your Central Time?
You're in
Anyway,
Hawaii,
it's
and I'm on. It's
12
5:22 right now. So
okay, so
4 to
anyway, look for us.
5:30, 90 minutes.
We were a little bit late, but bear with us. We're getting our stuff together, our acts together. But thank you so much. And I'm going to end this broadcast, and then I'm going to call you. So you've been listening to Portal Stargate with Janet Carol Lessin and Theresa J. Morris. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next week. Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.